So welcome everyone to our March edition of Dev Dives, a very special session today, Unleash the Power of macOS Automation with UiPath. I know many of you were waiting for this particular theme. And as always, we have a bit of house rules, not too many, but most of you who are already loyal to this program, it's the third year in a row, are familiar with them. So we expect you to, of course, fully enjoy the next 60 minutes packed with useful guidance and the live Q&A, of course, towards the end. You will receive the recording, useful links, and the presentation, which will be shared today. You will receive it on the event link and through email, probably tomorrow. You will get the answers to your questions. You will use the chat throughout the session for any question you might have. So we will try to support you in writing until the live Q&A. Please try to keep yourselves on mute until then, and we will be there in the chat, me and my colleagues. There's 4 of us, so we will make sure you're well taken care of. You're encouraged, of course, as always, to network, share your profiles in the chat, let us know where you're joining from, and connect with each other. And of course, we are very willing to listen to your feedback as well. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce today's speakers and our colleagues, Andrei Oros, Director of Product Management with UiPath, and SIlviu Tanasie, Senior Product Manager with UiPath. And now I'm going to hand over the screen to Andrei to officially start the session.
Thank you for the intro, Christina. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session about Mac. I'm very excited to show you what we've been up to since our last update from Forward. First of all, why are we doing this? Well, Mac is a platform that continues growing, especially in the enterprise space. And from an automation point of view, it was very much neglected because of many reasons. However, since we're evolving our platform on all fronts, including cross-platform, we are now able to actually target and unlock automation for macOS. First of all, I would like very much to learn scenarios that you guys might have for Mac automation, and I'm going to ask my colleague Christina to share a survey with you. So please do let us know while the presentation is going. Yep. Yeah, we're going to take this feedback into account when building the next features on top of what I'm going to show you today. A key component for automation on Mac is Studio Web. Studio Web is now a very, very powerful IDE that you can use to target automation on the macOS desktop as well, not just for API automation in the cloud. And from a feature parity point of view with Studio Desktop, that gets narrower and narrower each month, actually. So we're iterating really fast in the Studio Web space. And one of the key features that has enabled the macOS story for us has to do with Studio Web being able to debug, to test, not just on cloud on serverless, but also on a local Mac assistant. I'm happy to invite SIlviu, the product manager of Studio Web, to show us how everything works. SIlviu?
Hello, everyone. Let me share with you a bit how it works. It's gonna be a very quick demo. Here I'm sharing my Safari, and this is an automation that I've been running for some time, which creates a Studio Web template and verifies how fast Studio Web is able to create this template in this project. And so far, I've been running this project every day using serverless. I'm just gonna quickly just test it, not entirely, just to show you, the current experience that you may have already been accustomed to, where, you start the automation, it connects to serverless, and then it begins the testing. And well, this limits of what you can do because everything happens in the cloud. You only have access to Chrome. and you can't do any sort of desktop automation. And we decided to change all that. And that's why I'm gonna show you now the same automation, slightly modified, but to work on my local machine and using purely Safari. And by the way, Studio Web now is compatible with Safari, because if you see now in my demo here, everything is happening in the Safari browser, right? I'm not using Chrome or anything else or Edge. I'm in Safari. And this is the same automation that you previously saw, but this time is a bit updated, just a bit updated to work on Safari. You have to do some updates if you want to work it on Safari. And in order to test it on my local machine, the local Safari browser, I have to change here to my local machine. It will automatically open the assistant if it wasn't open, but because it was opened, it just showed me that it's going to use the assistant. And then I simply test it from here. And you'll see how now it begins automating my Safari browser very nicely. Now, what use cases can you do with this? Well, first of all, you're no longer tied to Chrome to do automations. You can automate things that maybe are designed to purely work on Safari. That's one thing. And the other use case is that you may want to run tests. Like you want to test the website that it behaves correctly on Safari, just like it works on Chrome or maybe Firefox. And with the Studio Web, you can do that. I can see everything that's happening here is automated by Studio Web on my Safari browser, and it's running pretty nicely. Maybe a bit too fast if you're able to see everything that's happening. To have it to work correctly, you will have to have the assistant installed and connected to your cloud account. And you will also have to, well, there are some tweaks that you would probably have to do in order to get it to work correctly with Safari and UI automation. But these are technical details I'm not going to go into. I think that's all that I wanted to show you in a nutshell. If you have any questions, I'll answer them gladly in the chat. Thank you, Andrei. Handing it back to you.
Thank you, SIlviu. That demo ran a bit too fast. I think we have to add some delays in the activities, in my opinion. All right. So SIlviu showed a really powerful capability, debugging locally on the macOS desktop, and that actually opens a lot more use cases for us. You are now able to interact with files on your Mac desktop, such as this Excel one that I have here. And you are able to do new types of processing that, again, are not browser related. Just to showcase this capability, I have here a demo workflow that I also showed that forward, but I think it's important to showcase again. It's processing an Excel file, reading some content from it and outputting it in the logs. And a few things are very important here. First of all, the Unix file path. So our cross-platform activities, because everything you have in Studio Web, Studio Web workflow is cross-platform by default. So our file activities and yeah, everything that has a file processing as a capability works with Unix paths. So in this case, I have as an input for the workflow the full path to my Excel file on my desktop. And I'm using this for the redraw activity. So in this scenario, I'm working with Excel files, not via Office 365, but with the official Excel desktop activities that are now also available for Mac for cross-platform. These are recommended for use cases where the processing has to be more performance focused, where you have to do thousands of rows bulk processing. These work better than the Office 365 ones. However, capabilities-wise, they're not on parity. So there will be more features in the Office 365 ones. But again, different types of use cases. But the basic operations, reading rows, ranges, writing to cells, all that is available in these ones too. I've already selected debugging testing on my local machine. You saw the input, the Excel file from my desktop, and it's connecting to my assistant, fetching the content, and yeah, let's see. Second, but as you can see, yeah, so it outputted the full path, and this is the content from the Excel file on my desktop. So yeah, this ran quite fast as well once the connection was restored. Okay, cool. So access to the Mac desktop is unlocked. You can do file processing, run perhaps Apple script, right? It's again an advanced scenario, but with Apple script you can do a ton of stuff on the macOS desktop if you couldn't find in our list the activities that you need, similar to running PowerShell on Windows if you wish. So access to the desktop unlocked. But let's see what's next. At Forward, we've shown how you can automate with UI automation SAP Java GUI. Again, just the runtime for now. Since then, we've been busy and we've actually unblocked not just automation, UI automation for SAP Java GUI, but UI automation for any Java application on the macOS desktop. This still requires that you design the process, the project in Studio Desktop on Windows. But after you've done that, you can actually run it. Since it's a cross-platform project, you can run it on Mac. We're also working on the design part, but more about that a bit later. So again, UI automation for any Java application is now available. And even more, we went one step further. UI automation for any native macOS application is now also unlocked. So again, any native macOS application, whether we're talking notes, numbers, mail, and also any other custom application that you might have developed internally with Swift or Objective-C or yeah, it's targetable by our UI automation today. Let me show you how this works. So I have here a demo that extracts data from SAP, and that data is used to fill in the details for an invoice in numbers. Yeah. No hands. The system is doing everything by itself. So it's getting the data from this table. Now it's opening numbers with a predefined template, and it's filling in the details from the SAP table. And look how fast it is. Again, native UI automation on Mac. Let that sink in. I'm just going to show you how we've built this. The Java part is available since 24.10, since last year in October. In order to indicate Java applications, all you have to do is go to project settings, UI automation, and toggle this radio button to true, enable Java automation preview. This should be out of preview in the next months. What this allows me to do is to have a use application scope, which indicates to the SAP client on Windows, and then I can use extractable data, all the stuff that you would expect. You publish this and you can run it on your Mac assistant. Now, for the numbers, and here we also have the invoices template for numbers. You see it here. And for SAP for this particular use case, we have some utils that we found relevant for the login, but that's just our programming OCD. If you wish, how we structure the project, nothing fancy. In the main XAML, I'm just invoking a numbers field table CS file. With this demo, we went for the coded workflow approach, but this could have been everything done with UI activities. We have type in to click, identifying the application window. So this approach works as well. We just wanted to show you this this option too. We're opening the application identified by this selector, window app numbers, doing some validation, type into, click, nothing fancy, and it's everything you're familiar with already. Again, the experience today involves cross-platform project in Studio Desktop on Windows for UI automation only. Okay. Getting back to Mac. What we've done so far. Debugging locally on the macOS desktop with Studio Web, checked. Studio Web, by the way, is also available in Automation Suite. So if you are on-prem, you can also benefit of these latest capabilities. So Studio Web integration servers, you can get them as part of Automation Suite. So that's no longer a blocker. Office automation, Excel in particular, and a lot more is also checked because we have a ton of cross-platform activities, and even more will be available, for instance, Word. UI automation for SAP Java GUI, checked. And all this was available in October last year. Since then, we've also enabled UI automation for all Java applications and also for all native macOS applications, such as numbers, pages, mail, etc. I showed you in my demo the numbers part. What's coming next? Well, you saw that for today I had to create a project with the help of Studio Desktop for UI automation, right? Office, I think it's clear for everyone. Studio Web is more than capable of accommodating this type of scenario. But for UI automation, it's a bit not so elegant. You have to still leverage Studio Desktop. So we're planning to change this actually in the first half of this year, in the following months. And we're going to enable design time experience via Studio Web. We're also looking into enabling the computer vision option for UI automation. That's coming a bit later. And at the end of the year, we're going to also have Test Manager available in Studio Web. So you can look forward to doing some testing on Mac as well, if that's your thing. And in the Apple tradition, we have one more thing, really big announcement, but I am keeping that actually for my upcoming DevCon session. So I'm going to invite you to join me there, either in person or on the virtual event. Now we would like to hear thoughts, questions.
I got a question. Does this work with both Apple Silicon and Intel-based Mac?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
that's not a criteria. Yeah.
The demo that I've done is on Mac M2.
M2. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Basically, the assistant has What you're asking has to do with the assistance availability of both Intel and ARM silicon. The rest is built in. Okay, let's see. Maybe we have some.
Do we need a Windows machine to build UI automation on Mac? That's
Today, yes. Today, yes. Like I showed in my demo, you have to create a cross-platform project in Windows with Studio Desktop. And after you publish it, or you can do remote debugging on the Mac machine. And after you publish it, it will be accessible from here. But again, this is just for UI automation. For everything else that we've shown, so Excel automation, browser automation with Safari, what SIlviu presented, you don't have Studio Desktop as a prerequisite.
Thanks. Do you have any the reference or the documentation how we can use the Apple script on Studio Web or any other script? Because I have a couple of the Mac apps that offers the Apple script that I want to use in the Studio Web. Because that's the way that I can use the not UI automation, but native Mac apps for automation.
Yeah, we can share a demo for that. If you're interested, just drop us in the chat or your contact, and I can share how you can accomplish that. It's actually quite easy. In a cross-platform project, you would have to invoke to start the process. The process you would pass as an input the full path to the Apple script binary, and then your script would be an argument. I can show you how you can do that, and even more elegantly, you could wrap this as a library, so you could invoke any binary, not just Apple script.
Thanks. I'll contact you. Thanks.
Yep. I'm curious, what scenarios are you planning on building with Mac? Where can I see this?
Andrei, let me know if you would like to take a look at the answers
Yes,
for the
please.
poll.
Can you share?
Just a bit. Yes, I will try. Let me see if it's working. Okay. So these are the answers. You can see here.
Let's see. Mac device details and read system information, system settings. Okay, I think that should be possible, right, Andrei?
Yes. So, can you? Okay. Developing Studio. If the user is using macOS, then we need to test it. Automation suite, Excel reports. Yeah, that's doable already. Creation of invoices locally. Yeah, that's already doable today. UI automation for Apple Mail will work with what I've shown you today. Integrating with Python, JavaScript. So that's an ask to basically have the invoke code activity extended or our existing activities for Python. Those should work already. For JavaScript, I don't think we have yet the support, but we can add it. Daily tasks all assisted. Would like to have the capabilities that UiPath has in Windows to be present on Mac. So yeah, feature parity, we're working towards this. UI automation over browser, that's exactly what SIlviu demoed. That's already possible today.
Maybe I can share a little bit and show them how you can also indicate from Safari. So
I
to show
think
that,
that would help.
yes, just a second.
And regarding the question with testing, yes, you could use the UI automation capabilities we've added to do tests on Mac application. I know, to make sure that a patch that the application received doesn't break your automation. So you could definitely use it for that type of scenarios.
So if you see here, it works exactly like any other browser. You have the selection helper. You can go and indicate.
Do you want to share screen, SIlviu?
We see.
We see.
I see his screen.
Yeah, and you indicate where you want to target, and you put the anchors, and you can configure them just like you do on your Chrome or Windows machine on Edge. Works exactly the same. And you can confirm and need to save it and take it back to Studio Web afterwards, exactly as I showed you earlier. So it's feature parity when it comes to support for Safari and Chrome. We have feature parity here.
So anything browser automation related is already possible.
Yeah.
On Mac, you can try it today.
And there was another question there, whether you'll be able to integrate to test it. Yes, Studio Web will integrate to test it eventually. It's work in progress. And yes, you will be able to use test cases and build them and deploy them and have them running against Safari or macOS.
And the first step towards that is the availability of Test Manager in Studio Web, and this is happening in Q4 this year. So we are building towards this actively.
I see there is one more question in the chat. I don't know whether this was answered. Can we execute Windows automated scripts on macOS Safari?
I don't understand what Windows automated scripts.
If Magyada would like to maybe unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Maria?
Andrei, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah. So my question basically is like when we create the scripts in Windows, like for Google or like for when we automate in UiPath Studio and in the Chrome. So will that work for the Safari when we will try to like execute through Mac OS, or like is it not possible even if we try to create in like web like Mac OS web as you were explaining, like UiPath web? So will that script be able to work for Safari, or will that work for only like Chrome?
So by
Did you?
script, if you by script, you mean automation. If as long as
Yes,
you
like in UiPath web, as you were explaining, like we can.
So as long as the project is cross-platform and cloud compatible, I don't see why not. It should normally work, yes. And also even more if it's a web browser use case. That should actually work today.
So
you.
you are saying that we need to create the script on like macOS or UiPath web, and even if we create it for Chrome, then it will work for Safari as well.
Yeah, normally yes. It's a cross-platform project, and there is now feature
Okay,
parity
sure.
between Chrome
And
and Safari. So you could
and
get
the
started
script,
directly.
the script which is created in Windows will not be working. Like the UiPath Studio for like the enterprise version for the Windows, I'm asking for that.
No, so if you build on Windows in Studio Desktop a cross-platform project, right, cloud compatible, this should also work on Mac. So if you can, I know you connect this to save it to cloud, you test it in the browser, it works. There is no reason why it shouldn't execute on Mac as well. But the starting point for Mac automation, we recommend starting directly in Studio Web.
In Studio Web.
Mhm.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Okay.
Are there any
Anything,
questions?
anything that you'd like to suggest for us to add to the roadmap? We would like your feedback on this as well. So you've seen the evolution. And we're
Studio
curious. Please.
Studio Desktop on macOS would be great. Yeah, I know it's a long way away, but it would be great.
Join me at DEF CON and we'll see. Maybe we have a good surprise in place for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything in particular that you miss in from Studio Desktop that you don't have in Studio Web?
I think the one thing that I would miss on web and between desktop is that for web you always need a network connectivity. But when we are using the Studio Desktop, like if you are planning to automate any macOS application, we can do it without the internet connectivity too. That's like, a really big catch between web and desktop.
If you are on-prem, Studio Web is hostable locally as part of Automation Suite. And that doesn't require internet connectivity. You could be locked out. But yeah, if you're not using Automation Suite, indeed, yeah, that scenario would be solved by Studio Web availability directly on the desktop. I agree.
And besides this one, is there any other pain that you could say it's the biggest deal breaker regarding usage of Studio Web?
This would
Not
help us.
Honestly, nothing as such. It's just that it's more easy to work on the desktop application than a browser. That's what I feel.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Any feature that you're, I don't know, particularly fond of in Studio Desktop and you don't have in Studio Web? I know, just an example. Do any of you need in Studio Web to manage packages and version and that stuff? Just an example. Are you missing that experience from Studio Desktop?
Yes. That's like one thing, like, playing around with the versions, because sometimes we are using older versions and web is always on the newer ones. So that's one thing. Because I've seen that a lot of the activities they get taken away in the newer ones. So, yep.
Okay.
And what else? That was just an example from my side, something that I miss, and I wanted to highlight again to SIlviu. But what are your guys' wishes? Do you miss flowchart workflows in web?
I've not used them, so honestly, I don't have an answer for that.
I see someone is writing here, says, I feel like I need the web experience to be more like Studio as far as handling variables and arguments and modularization. My experience with it is limited, but the way it works entirely is just so different from desktop, even regular coding. Yes. Yes, we are aware of this, and we are working on some improvements for variables and arguments and handling them. Definitely something that needs to be done there.
Also from the chat. Sorry, please.
Before I move on, I have one more question. Do you ever feel the need to set up sort of like complex types, not necessarily Studio Web, but in Studio in general, types that, you know, like let's say a dictionary of dictionaries, which is not necessarily easy to do in Studio Web to set a dictionary of dictionaries?
Do you work with advanced types?
It says that yes, 100%. I do all sorts of weird stuff in Studio. I even have done recursive workflows to traverse file systems.
Okay,
Nice.
nice, yeah.
Nice.
There is one comment about scripting SAML workflows. You may need to adjust paths, Windows, Mac, Unix style, of course. So if you're using an absolute file path like I've done in my example, you're gonna have to adjust them. But if you use relative paths, if that file is actually next to your XAMLs, for instance, like the invoice template that I had for numbers, this is next to my XAML files, then relative paths will work as well. But otherwise, if you're working with full paths, yeah, you're gonna have to respect the OS to provide a valid input at the end of the day. Selector adjustment depends. If we're talking about selector for Java applications with UI automation, no. Those apply to both Windows and Mac. So you could design, like I did here, the workflow for Java in a cross-platform project on Studio Desktop, and you could see it running in my demo on Mac. So the selectors for Java applications, no, those are also cross-platform. You don't need to adjust them. If you have selectors for numbers, yeah, the Apple numbers application, of course, that's not, you don't have numbers on Windows, right? So that will not work. Windows specific environment, input dialog, etc. The input dialogues for such as files and stuff like that, we have support in the UI automation driver for the native dialogues of both Windows and Mac, and they're actually different. So you will have for integrating file dialogues into your automation, you're gonna have to know on which OS it's running, or you can do an if, and based on an environment variable, you open one or the other. So yeah, but I would say that the items that you listed there are totally fine. You just have to be considerate of what you're doing. Okay. Let's see. What else?
One more question, Andre. Like I particularly used the VB language as the language in my project for one of my clients, and over there we saw that it was the studio packaging was really slow. and it took us it was really hard for us to convert from VB to C#. So is there any way that it could be easier to convert from VB to C#? Because that is one really big pain point for us. And actually we ended up losing that client because we did not get a good support from UiPath. So it's something that you should take a look at, why VB is really slow on Studio.
Okay, that's good feedback. Can you write us, can you reach out to us? Because I'm curious about the details, what didn't work, and in order to help you and
If
others.
you check out, I'm from Testing Experts, and we already had created a lot of tickets with you. So if you check the ticket that we got created, you will probably find something. I don't want to name the client that
Testing
we work for.
experts. Okay, no, that's
Yeah,
fine. I'm curious about the project, the size of the project, the version, all those details. But if you say that we already have them in our system,
you should have them in your system. So if you take a look at the tickets raised by us, you should be able to get something.
okay, we'll take a look.
Yeah, that's one feedback. Also, if in case there should be something that would make it easier to convert from VB to C#, so that would make our lives a lot easier. Because at this point, a majority of the people, when you started, majority of the people used VB, but now people have started moving towards C#, but the old projects cannot be migrated over.
Yeah, it's a
They need to be
migration.
converted manually. Yeah, they need to be done manually, and it's a very big task because the dependencies that we have, they don't work between VB and C#. There are a lot of things that don't work between the two languages. So that needs to be a bit more seamless.
Mhm. We have to take a look. But indeed, migration is a sensitive topic, especially given this big effort that we're also taking advantage of for Mac, which is the cross-platform transition. So yeah, we have to see. Maybe it's something that has to do with the tooling, that we can quickly address, ideally. But I have to see the details together with the studio team to see what's
Yeah, sure.
the missing link there.
Yeah,
Thank you
because
for the feedback.
one thing over there, when I worked for that client, one thing that I I know that this is a really good tool, but one thing that I realized over there is that the studio does not work very good with virtual machines. That's one thing. Plus, the support turned out to be quite slow. Just an honest feedback, I'm giving you honest feedback. It was quite slow. We didn't we expect, if we are paying such a high fee, we expect to get the response in at least a day or maybe 2 days, but it used to take your support at least 5 days to just start answering the query. So that was a really bad experience for us.
I think it depends
And
on the type of query. I'm sorry that you had a bad experience with our support, but depending on the ticket and from the sound of it, the ones that you raised are quite are related to advanced topics. They need to usually get in front of engineering. So, for instance, migration from VB to C#. In my opinion, that's not something that
migration was not at all a problem. Migration was way out of the line, but the slowness of packaging, that was the biggest challenge. And I think we got a reply, just kind of an acknowledgement that we are taking a look. That also came after 5 days. So that is one area where you could improve, that at least give us some kind of acknowledgement that yeah, we got your ticket, we are working on it. That would give us a mental peace.
we have to check with support. So that's feedback for
Yeah.
our support. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
With Studio Web, I think we should be doing faster, right, SIlviu?
Yes.
Feedback
And
is a
by the
bit.
way, if you have any feedback or you ever encounter problems and you find support to be going too slowly, don't hesitate to contact me. Right.
You have our
I will.
contacts in the PowerPoint
Yeah.
deck, so
Yeah, I will make sure you get unblocked and you're successful in whatever you're trying to build.
or at least to see why it's slow. For instance,
Yeah.
for the migration topic, I do expect that it takes a bit of time for engineering to figure out stuff, but at least someone from support should acknowledge that, hey, we are looking into it faster than the
Exactly.
time you mentioned.
Exactly. That's what we need. Like rather than a complete silence, just as brief acknowledgement would be really good.
Hmm?
A
Point
brief
taken.
acknowledgement would be really good.
Okay. Let's see if we have other questions in the chat. Okay, studiodesktop.net, expression editor. What is the best alternative to accelerate learning? So the best getting started, in my opinion, is the Studio Web one. Start from Studio Web, get familiar with it if you're not already, and then start playing with testing on the local machine, get familiar with Unix file paths. As you can see, they're quite straightforward. So my desktop is users Andrei Oros desktop, and then you have access to the files if you're working with Unix file paths. And afterwards, you can advance to other use cases, UI automation in the browser, with Safari, and UI automation with native macOS apps a bit later. Because today, when we unlock also the design experience, or you can start the day, like I showed you here, with a cross-platform project in Studio Desktop that you can debug remotely on the Mac Assistant. You showed UI automation on Mac native apps using C#. Is it possible to automate only by writing C# on IDE such as Visual Studio or Cursor? SIlviu, I see that you replied partially.
Yes.
Yeah, we are working on evolve as part of Verity Studio Web and Desktop. We are working on evolving the more coded experience in Studio Web as well. Right now, you can invoke code with via our activity, but we plan to go beyond that. But like SIlviu mentioned, if you have a particular use case in mind, please share it because it will help us prioritize the activity evolution, or maybe a built-in capability like coded workflows. Okay, I don't think I missed any other questions. If you have other questions, you can always reach out to us. You have our contacts also in the chat. In web browser automation, does it work the same in Safari as in Chrome? Yeah, you use the
Yes,
same
it does.
activities, and what SIlviu showed can be built for both Safari and Chrome.
Okay, I just shared again your emails in the chat for anyone who wants to follow up, either on the feedback or on their proposal that they put in the survey. So you have Andrei's and SIlviu's email addresses for those of you who want to follow up on the subject. And I think maybe now we can move on, Andrei, if you would, for the next slide, to present our next session of Dev Dives for April. And you have here the registering links for America and EMEA APJ. So we are waiting for you next time in April to automate and orchestrate your process with UiPath Agentic Orchestration. which is a very hot subject now. So make sure you register. My colleague Mihai just placed the registering links in the chat. You will also find these events on the program page, DevDives page. Maybe Mihai will also share the program page where you can access both future and all the past session of DevDives as well. So here we go. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the session, that it was useful. And see you next time in April. Till then, share with us your thoughts. If you have any feedback, connect with us. The LinkedIn profiles were shared in the chat earlier to both Andrei and SIlviu as well. And have a nice reminder of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for
Thanks,
joining.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
the
you, Andrei,
interest.
and thank you, SIlviu.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.